Welcome back to Stat 7 Sports. We're back again. I'm Thing Kunas, back again to another top 5 rankings of this 2020 draft. Now with the linebackers. All we have left is linebackers and all the players in the secondary. Going off first with Isaiah Simmons, the kind of one you could fit between both secondary and linebacker. He's kind of a hybrid. He played cornerback, he played slot, he played linebacker, he played safety. So he has a lot of versatility, and he has been hyped up for this draft really for most of his career. More often for the last 2 years, especially for the fact that him having this past year 16.5 tackles for loss, over 100 tackles, 8 sacks, 3 picks, 8 pass deflected, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 fumbles forced, 1 fumble recovery. So he was kind of an all-around guy where he's got the size of a safety, but he has the whereabouts and the ability of a linebacker to be able to cover bigger backs, bigger tight ends, so he's very versatile. Just like the Chase Young, just like Burrow and a few others of the big ones that are going to be top 10 picks, there's not many flaws for Simmons. Simmons may be the most pro-ready prospect here, to where it's like he has the fewest flaws of anybody in this draft, with giant wingspan, being able to burst quickly, in coverage, and against the run. He's instinctual to the ball, to where it's like you're not going to get a lot of run after the catch whenever he's somewhere in the area. Like he's good in space, be able to fend off blockers, and he's one that you always have to account for in coverage and out in space against the run. So like Clemson used them in so many different ways defensively, to where Brent Venables really could maneuver however he wanted to do his defense off of Simmons primarily. But I will be talking more on Clemson once we get to secondary probably tomorrow. So not really much flaws off of him. And then we're going off of the second red linebacker, and there's very likely going to be either 3 or 4 linebackers going to be drafted in the first round. Kenneth Murray, it should be a surefire first-round pick, as you know that Oklahoma has not had a good defense for really many years. They've been harped for the fact that is like Lincoln Riley, Bob Stoops, they can't coach defense, especially Lincoln Riley. But I spoke of Neville Gallimore in defensive tackle rankings, and Kenneth Murray is actually probably the biggest name on there to detract against the fact that everyone believes Oklahoma can't play defense. Because he is always around the ball. Over 150 tackles his sophomore year. Yes, he had a little bit less tackles, but he had more impact behind the line of scrimmage, and he's just kind of all around the ball. But he's not going to be a top 10 guy like Simmons will be. So he's explosive for his size, very strong tackler, very good in coverage for his size, and he can really go on any scheme fit. Like, that's the one thing that Simmons may have a little bit more trouble, because he is more of a hybrid guy. They have to be able to kind of work around his skill set. So if teams are trying to fit him in potentially 2 or 3 different type of schemes and type of builds, he could somewhat get lost in the shuffle. Murray could be a little bit more of a safer pick, just because of he started nearly every game that he played in college, and he's always a consistent player. Now, he has more detractors than than Simmons, but being in Oklahoma kind of as a defensive player kind of does that within itself. Now, he is kind of a high tackler. Like, he's not one that ends up lowering his base and trying to end up running through. So he can end up hitting towards the shoulders, so it's like some missed tackles could happen. A lot of his coverage was zone reads, was in zone coverage to where he's kind of just reacting to where the ball is going and trying to read quarterback's eyes. So that's good on that end, but he's never really been that much of one-on-one in coverage. And because of that, there could be a bit of a learning curve on him, especially whenever they try to go into man coverage. But he's still going to be a solid one. Still going to be a solid pick. He's going to be a starting middle linebacker pretty much from day one because of his tackling skills, because of his ability in zone coverage. For the fact that he hasn't done much man coverage, yes, hurts him, but that's one thing that is going really against Oklahoma's scheme than anything else. But going on to the next one, the one's probably gone up the most this year is Patrick Queen. Oof. One moment. I hope everyone missed that, but I would doubt if they did. But Patrick Queen, his stats, just like a bunch of LSU players, they've kind of ballooned up over his past year. Kind of just he barely played his freshman year. He was kind of a off and on starter between him and Jacob Phillips, also in this draft. And whenever they had Devin White, so someone had to be on the bench. But with having Queen and having Phillips on the field, Queen was definitely able to show his attributes, his speed, being able to move in coverage. One of the better linebackers in this draft, maybe the second best cover guy in this draft behind Simmons. But he is also one that can end up disrupting the ball in the backfield, disrupting the run. He's very quick at reacting, being able to anticipate in coverage. So that's one that's going to be a good coverage linebacker in short range, and he's going to give you consistent effort. So it's not one where it's like there's going to be any character issues and it's like someone's going to just rest on their laurels in the NFL. So it's going to be Queen's going to be likely a mid to late first round pick, but he has been one that's been shooting up boards. So maybe like the mid to upper 20s, around that range, and potentially all the way down to 29, 30-ish. But he is a bit undersized as a middle linebacker. That's one of the main reasons why Jacob Phillips was given more of the edge initially over his sophomore year, is he's really only 6'3", 227, which is a bit undersized for a linebacker. They're wanting him to be around like the 240 range, maybe a 245. So because of that, his power is not always top notch, and it does make it to where there's only certain areas that he's able to kind of give his push to be able to tackle well. So a lot of times he's trying to end up going down towards the ankles because he can't out physical guys on the ball. Now you go on to up north to Wisconsin, where you have Zack Baun as the fourth best linebacker in this draft, where he's one who's had ACL injuries in his sophomore year that really kept him from being too much of a factor then, but then slowly built himself back up between his junior and senior year. 7.5 tackles for loss, and then this past year, almost tripling that amount with 19.5 and going for more than 12.5 sacks. Now, he is one of the hybrid guys where it's like he could be considered a middle linebacker or he could be considered one that's going to be an edge rusher. So he is one that's able to actually go off the ball recognition. That's why they actually think of him as still a full linebacker, but he's also had experience and success in a pass rushing step. So be able to get off the line quick, being able to get into the backfield and disrupt the quarterback's timing. That's going to be very important for a team that needs another pass rusher or just trying to fit him somewhere in their schemes. Now, he's a good pass rusher. He's not really that great as a run defender on the edge because he can get pushed around by offensive tackles fairly easily. And especially whenever those linemen have long arms, they can kind of outreach him because he is a little bit on the shorter arm range, and some of his movements are a bit stiff, trying to go through pass rush and trying to basically predict what linemen are going to do. And then there's still going to be lingering doubts on how he was after his 2017 left foot injury. So that's one where Baun could end up being a second round pick and just because of that lingering concern. Then there's a bit of a gap afterwards. There's probably a few choices I could have gone with, but going down to the West Coast, we get Troy Dye out of Oregon. And he is one that was consistent nearly his entire career, almost 100 tackles in all 4 seasons, with his actually least production over his senior year. But still a very solid linebacker. He has a reactive lack to the He's very reactive in his athleticism to be able to get to the ball really quickly after the ball gets out in coverage. He's one that can end up reading an offense and be able to read what the quarterback's going to do, trying to go pre and post snap. So he's one that's going to be able to work through zone coverage, try to basically read what the quarterback's going to do and just jump routes. And he is one that is full of energy. He's one that's always going to give top-notch effort. So he's going to be one where it's like, even if he's not a day one starter or if he's not a starter in his rookie year, he's going to be a great guy that's going to be good for special teams. So someone who needs speed on that side on a third down positioning and on kick return, punt returns, and all that. Dye is going to be a solid linebacker and maybe gunner for that. But he's not one that's going to be able to kind of power through on his hits, and it's going to be difficult for him to deal with if he's trying to. He's more of a coverage linebacker than a rushing linebacker. So he's going to struggle to get across blocks, and he's not going to really be used that much as a pass rusher. So in that case, he really could be like, he's going to stay out in coverage on passing down, so he could end up being just a third down, but he could have issues kind of developing into basically a 3-down linebacker, just be able to be on the field at all times. But that's going to be the top 5 linebackers. The next one that will start on tomorrow will be defensive backs. That's going to be cornerbacks and safeties. It's going to be the last one of the pre-draft process, and then after that, we'll get together my personal mock draft for the first round. I'm not going any further than that because that could get out of hand. And then we'll look back on how everyone in last year's draft was productively in last year's season. So keep an eye on those. They're going to be coming out in the next couple days. But with that all being said, I'm Contained Kunas. This is Stat 7 Sports. Y'all stay safe. See y'all next time.